Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Hello and welcome to USA Global TV and Radio. My name is Caroline Heward and I'm known as the Harley Street Stress Expert. Today's show is Talking Heads and I'm an expert presenter in today's topic, which is what is borderline personality disorder? And it's part of the Mind and Body Connection series. Let's begin. So I'd like to start off with a quote from Marsha M. Linehan. And she says, people with borderline personality disorder, known for short as BPD, are like people with third-degree burns, over 90% of their bodies lacking emotional skin. They feel agony at the slightest touch or movement. Lacking emotional skin. They feel agony at the slightest touch or movement. Just want you to keep that in mind as we go through this talk today, because it will start to give you some understanding of what borderline personality disorder is. I want to also express that there are many people that are probably suffering with borderline personality disorder that are actually not diagnosed. So there are many people that have these tendencies and these traits, but they've not been diagnosed. And so it's really interesting as I go through this talk today for you to bear in mind, do you have some of these traits, or do you know somebody that has some of these traits, or are you in a relationship with someone that has these types of experiences? So borderline personality disorder, a definition. There was a lot of very lengthy definitions, and I felt that this one was quite short and to the point. BPD, short for borderline personality disorder, is a mental health disorder that generates significant emotional instability. Significant emotional instability. This is the key to borderline personality disorder. And it then went on to say symptoms: impulsive and risque behaviour, destructive behaviour, wild mood swings, inappropriate anger, intense episodes of anxiety or depression, suicidal behaviour, difficulty controlling emotions, fear of being alone, and self-hate. So we're going to explore some of these symptoms and traits of someone who has borderline personality disorder. So one of the things that's very key to understand about anyone that suffers with abandonment personality disorder is that they have abandonment issues. Now, abandonment issues is that it's the fact that they don't feel that you're going to be there. And so they will always work on the basis that you're not going to be there. So I'm better off without you, really. I'm going to cope on my own. I'm going to do this because I know that I'm the one that has to do this. So I'm alone in this. These are the kinds of things that they will say. They will be very open about the fact that they feel alone. They will be very open about the fact that even if they're in a relationship, that the relationship is not for good, not forever, that they're going to be left. And even if they are in a relationship, they will feel that you're going to end it, that the relationship won't continue. And this is where they feel isolated in their relationship, not only in the outside world, but actually in their internal world. It's almost like they're abandoning themselves. So therefore, it will give rise to very unstable relationships, whether it's with family, with siblings, parents, whether it's with friends, colleagues, whether it's an intimate relationship, a friendship. They will have instability in their relationships throughout the entire spectrum of relationships. And I want to stress here that it's important to understand that we're in a relationship with everything and everyone around us. So we're always relating to everything and everyone. We're in a relational ship with everything and everyone. So it'll also be the way that the person relates to events, situations, and circumstances, as well as people, family, friends. They will have a very poor self-image, not feeling that they look good enough or worthy enough. If the person has money, they may have a tendency to do lots of cosmetic surgery or go for lots of makeovers, where they're feeling that they don't have a good enough image. And if somebody does give them a compliment, they will usually say something like, if you turn around and say, oh, I really like that dress, they might turn around and say something like, oh, this old thing. Oh, I just, this was in the wardrobe. And that's because even if you give them a compliment, they will find it very difficult to accept the compliment because they have a poor self-image. And that includes academia. They will feel that they strive for better, for moving forward in their life, and feel that they've never really quite achieved what they want to achieve. So they could be always on the performance level of they've done something and then will still want to do more. If they're a very high functioning borderline personality disorder person, then they will be very much on the spectrum of very high level of education and still never feeling that they've got enough and always comparing themselves with other people in their industry or around them. They will also feel and appear very self-destructive, and that is that they will consider engaging in very risque activities, such as reckless driving, for instance, or it might be that they overly drink alcohol, or it might be that they take recreational substances. So what will happen is that they will be engaging in this reckless behavior because there is a low self-image, self-worth. And that can also appear in the intimacy area of their life, where they're becoming very promiscuous in their activity with one-night stands, whether they be female or male. So the self-destructive experience that will appear on the external of them. So what you will see in the person that has borderline personality disorder is that they'll be doing lots of risque type activities. It might be that they will do bungee jumping or skydiving, jumping out of planes, mountain climbing. And it's because they have a low self-worth of their life. And so they will do anything for destruction. And usually they will be okay in that space of self-destruction because they've learnt to cope with that adventure type aspect in their life. They may also be prone to self-harm, and this is a very, very big topic. And I've also done a presentation and a talk on self-harm separately, if this interests you. So we're only going to cover this in a vague and small way. That self-harm, essentially, not feeling good enough or worthy enough and not being able to cope with their emotions, they will then turn to harming themselves, whether it be cutting or hurting themselves, in order to experience more pain to subside the pain they're experiencing with their emotions. And self-harm is actually much more common in people than we actually give an understanding and credit for. And this is because it seems to be the very silent experience, especially for our young people, of coping, or their mechanism for coping or not coping with the things that cause them uncomfortableness in terms of their experiences of emotions and their overwhelm. There is a tendency for a lot of, especially young people, to turn to harming themselves in order to cope. It's a coping mechanism. And people with borderline personality disorder will be prone to overwhelm and not coping. So self-harm is one of the traits that can appear in that person's life. Emotional swings. They will be high as a kite 1 minute and feeling really raving and happy and joyous. And then in the next moment, they will be almost desolate, crying, angry, really, really in a lot of pain and anguish, jealousy. So the mood swings they'll be like a pendulum almost, in terms of like sort of feeling really high and good and lively and happy, and then moving towards the space of, isolation, desolation, and not really able to cope. And it's this severe, extreme emotional swing that the personality disorder attracts. And so when they're borderline, you will know if you are, or if you are in a relationship with somebody or know somebody that has a borderline personality disorder, because their mood swings will be quite extreme. They will be one thing 1 minute, and then in the next breath, it could be a word or something that you said or something that they watched, or a recollection of an experience can literally tip them right over the edge. There will also be a feeling of emptiness. And that emptiness is that their world will feel like a void. What do I mean by that? Their whole existence will feel that it's me, myself, and I, that there is no one else. And so that isolation and that desolation that they will feel is an overwhelm of loneliness and uncomfortable hopelessness in that space of the void. And no one will be able to fill it. Even if they're at a party with lots of people, they will still internally feel this emptiness. I actually feel that the word void is much more appropriate, as there's an empty space of nothingness. And even if they're at a party, even if they're with family or in their environment where everybody knows them, they will still feel an internal space of emptiness. Also, anger issues. There will be complete, overwhelming outbursts of anger. for almost no reason, or very small reasons, or for what would appear to be not very much reason to be angry. So everything will be blown out of proportion. And this is where they will feel very good one minute, and then you might say something to them and suddenly they will explode. And this is where the anger will affect any relationship that they're in. And you'll feel, if you're in a relationship with someone that has borderline personality disorder, that you're walking on eggshells, that you don't know what to say next, or you have to be careful about what you're saying because they might be hurt or they might take it the wrong way. And you will feel it with yourself if you have borderline personality disorder, or indeed if you're in a relationship with someone, whether it be family, colleague, friendship. You will actually see that anger mismanagement or not management. So do people with borderline personality disorder hold grudges? Well, I found this meme and I thought that it was really funny, and I wanted to share it with you because I thought that it really told a story in itself. Holding a grudge is like letting someone live rent-free in your head. It made me smile because it's so true. Because when you hold a grudge against someone, what happens is you spend a lot of your time occupied in thoughts about that person. You spend a lot of time occupied with the conversation that you might have, that you could have, and working through scenarios of they did this to you and they did that to you. And it is like they're living rent-free in your head and not giving you that peace, that inner peace of mind that we so longingly require and need. So do people with borderline personality disorder hold grudges? Oh, yes, they do. They will bring up time and time again something that you thought you'd handled, something that you thought you'd dealt with. And they might bring up something that happened last week or last month, or maybe 6 months ago, or last year, or 4 years ago, or 5 years ago, or 10 years ago, because they're like an elephant, they never forget. And so if you're in a relationship with someone that has borderline personality disorder, the challenge you will have is that you will always feel like you're 1 step forward and 2 steps back, 1 step forward, 3 steps back, because they will constantly bring up, oh, do you remember when you did this and you don't love me and you did this to me and I really hate you for that. They will always bring up because it's the game, it's the power play that they feel they need to become important in their void. And they will do anything to keep themselves feeling important because they don't feel significant. This is all about significance. And this living rent-free, even if you're not in the situation, your mind is still creating the situation. And so because you're thinking about the conversations and you're thinking about the grudge and how they did you wrong and how they really made your life a misery, when you are in that space of that conversation, the internal dialogue, it gives you no space to have your inner calm and inner peace. And you're the one that's suffering. The other person isn't suffering. Do people with borderline personality disorder cut you off? Yes, they do. They do cut you off because they are afraid. They are afraid of losing you. So it's almost like they will push the boundaries. They will keep pushing you so that you do say, oh, right, that's it. I've had it. I've had enough. That's it. No more. And then they'll quite gleefully come back and say, oh, that's just it. I knew that you'd leave me anyway, so let's just get it over with. So they push people away. Even though they want people to be in their life, they push people away. So this is the abandonment issue in its authority. It's really powerful because they will be constantly like a yo-yo. They'll want you, but they don't want you. They will want you to be there and be there for them in their time of need, but then they don't want you because I'm okay. I can do everything that I need to do. I don't need you. I can do this on my own. I don't need your help. I can do this better without you. And this is where they will cut you off to spite their face, to spite their nose. This is an expression that we use in England, cutting yourself off to spite your face, or cutting yourself off to spite your nose. It's very powerful when you see this because the person that is being cut off really feels, well, why? What have I done? You haven't done anything. It's a war zone inside the personality disorder. There is a war that's going on internally in their mind, and they want to stop themselves from hurting. So they cut you off so you don't hurt them. And therefore, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. What are the root causes of borderline personality disorder? Well, there are many different reasons. But essentially, one of the areas, abandonment, is a very key trait for someone who suffers with borderline personality disorder. And the abandonment issues is because as a child, as a baby, they might have been crying and they didn't have the support. They weren't picked up by their parents, or they felt internally abandoned. And so when they felt from a baby internally abandoned, that then stretched out into their whole life of not feeling loved, not wanted, not needed, not loved, not given affection. Well, so it could be trauma. There could have been something that happened in their childhood that caused a trauma and caused them to feel isolated, abandoned. It could even be something as simple as their parents splitting up, or a breakdown in the family. Many families are joined together at the hip, and if they were known as the white sheep or the black sheep of the family, they will feel an isolation away from their family. If they were singled out at school, if they were bullied, if there was a bereavement issue that was never handled, if they were brought up by a grandfather, a grandparent, and the grandfather or grandmother died, and they felt isolated, alone. And obviously the extremes of that is people that are born without their family, an orphan, parents died at birth, or a car accident, and so they're brought up in a home or an orphanage. And that feeling of abandonment, of being isolated and alone. And this carries through, I'm talking about a childhood experience. It could be very simply being chastised to such a point that they felt not loved and frightened to speak up. It could be that they were hit, spanked so hard that they felt they had to protect themselves. And this shell that they created was protection. There is a very famous story, a child called It. And the child was in isolation from the family and treated like worse than an animal, worse than a dog. They weren't allowed to sit at the table and eat with the family and the other children. They were made to eat scraps on the floor. They were treated horrifically. And this was in the 70s. David Pulitzer is his name, and he was in the 70s in America. And when I read that book, I couldn't put it down, and yet I kept crying. And this person, despite the fact that he had such trauma in his life, has been able to find a way of healing himself by sharing his story and sharing what he was able to overcome. And this is the human psyche, that it is, without a shadow of a doubt, it is a self-defense mechanism. It doesn't matter how badly we are treated as a child. We build walls, we build mechanisms to defend ourselves. And these walls and self-defense mechanisms, they stand for us for our entire life. And what happens is when we get into adulthood and then we form relationships with other people outside of the experience that we had, and then we play out because that's our norm. And it's only when somebody says this isn't right, or they might have a friend that really cares for them or a relationship, that they start to look at the fact that how they're living is not in a good way for themselves and for their relationships. That this is a protection mechanism, a shutting down, a way to cope, a way to move through life so that they don't get hurt, so that they feel safe. So border personality disorder is much more common than we think it is, because the root cause can be so deep within us from a very early child age that we've forgotten. We don't even think it's an issue. We've just moved on and we are coping. Now, this is where the challenges lie when we move into relationships. It's not wrong. It's not right. It simply is. And it's only when in another relationship that it shows up that it can be harmful. And this is where you will feel, if you have borderline personality disorder, that everything is not working for you, because you will always move into the void. Why do people with borderline personality disorder hurt the ones they love? This is so true. It's unbelievably challenging as the living nightmare. It's because you know them, because they can be themselves, because they trust you, because they don't have to put on a show for you, because you know them and you love them. And there is a phrase, we always hurt the ones we love. And that is because you will feel normal, that you don't have to pretend, you don't have to hide, you don't have to try and be something that you're not. And so the person that's there that really loves you, and it can be an intimate partner, a friend, it can be your parents, it can be your siblings. It doesn't matter which type of relationship. It can even be your boss. It can be that very bestest friend that you can't be without, that you can't be with, that you'll keep going back to be hurt more. So why do we keep going back? It's because we love them and we care. And we want them to be okay. We love them that much that we will, in that space, suffer because we care enough to put up with the problems that we experience in that relationship. but they hurt the ones they love because they can, and because you know them well enough, and they don't have to hide. They don't have to try or perform or be anything that they don't feel they want to be, but they will put on a big show for everyone else. They will show up as if there's nothing wrong to everyone else, like everything is good. But for you, if they love you and you love them and there's a big bond between you, this is where you will get hurt. Do people with borderline personality disorder punish you? Oh, yes, they do. They want you to remember. They want you to keep living out what you did wrong to them, what you did against them, even if you didn't mean to, even if they've taken it the wrong way. It's all your fault. And they will bring it up at every opportunity that they can. Why? Because of the void, because they feel powerless. And this is the way that they gain or feel they can gain their inner control, their inner drama to solve the demons internally. This is something that just rages because there's a disconnect with the emotions. And so they will look to punish you for how they're feeling inside. Let's look at some famous personalities and celebrities with borderline personality disorder. Jim Carrey. He's done some extraordinary movies where he can really be very outlandishly crazy, which copes with his mentality and his craziness. And he has been seen to be in the media as, you know, is there something wrong with Jim Carrey? He's extremely funny and yet extremely serious and yet extremely destructive. And the same goes for Britney Spears. Extremely destructive and yet extremely famous. So it doesn't matter how much adoration, love, how famous you are, how much money you have. This is not a disorder for the people that have no money. This is a disorder for everyone. Money, fame, fortune. It doesn't choose. Amy Winehouse. Do you know, whenever I used to see her on TV, I used to feel very upset for her. She was almost like screaming, I don't want this, I want to get out. It was always very sad to see her suffer. She did show very much this destructive behaviour of substances, alcohol abuse, as an escape, the overwhelm. And yet she was amazing. All these people have talent. They have fortune, they have fame, and yet they are suffering. Robbie Williams. Makes my heart break whenever I saw how much fame and fortune and yet how much suffering. Borderline personality disorder doesn't choose the poor, the sick, the lame. It affects anyone, no matter what stage of your life you're at. It affects everyone and anyone. It is not just for the poor and the sick. It's also for the rich. Who would believe that all these people with all that fame and fortune could feel a void, could feel the isolation of not feeling loved, of feeling abandonment, and feeling total destruction. And these people have shown you in the celebrity news, right there in front of us, they're displaying all of these symptoms that I've been talking about. So, quote again from Dr. Marsha M. Linehan. I wanted to include this quote because I felt that it was a brilliant quote to help anyone that suffers with borderline personality disorder, whether you know someone, that this will make sense. You could actually define borderline personality disorder as the ultimate I don't fit in disorder. They are, in my opinion, the ultimate outsiders. Let me repeat that. You could actually define borderline personality disorder as the ultimate I don't fit in disorder. They are, in my opinion, the ultimate outsiders. Dr. Marsha Linehan. And with that, the ultimate outsiders, who do you know that has these kinds of traits, that appears as an outsider, that has these erratic behaviours? They can be good in small doses, but painfully draining on your energy. Thank you for your attention and your interest. Please subscribe to USA Global TV and Radio. You can find all of our Talking Heads episodes under the playlist entitled Talking Heads. You will find all of my Talking Heads episodes under my name, Caroline Heward, Talking Heads. Please do reach out to me if I may be of service. You can contact me on nomorestress@live.co.uk or reach out if you're international, +44. If you're local, 07523 120 189. I have painted quite a bleak picture here, and at the same time, awareness is the key. When we are aware, when we become a witness to the extraordinary traits and the erraticness of borderline personality disorder, when we become a witness, this is when we can start moving forward and resolving things. And today it's been more about insight, understanding, and awareness, so that then professional help can be sought. And you'll be surprised in that state of insight, understanding, and awareness, how much change and transformation is possible. Thank you for being here with me. I offer a free consultation for 30 minutes on Zoom. It will be my pleasure to help you through any stress that you experience. Namaste.